Hello everybody. In this Python tutorial, we're going to go over how to create fake data or filler data. At times, it can be very useful to be able to create a set of fake data, and some examples of when this might be useful include when you need to have some fake or filler data to put into test programs or to test out programming language features, to test out different programming language libraries and modules, to put into spreadsheets, and the list goes on and on. We will be using the Faker module, and first things first, let's go over how to get this module, which will allow us to create fake data. So the first thing we want to do is go to python.org. So let's go there now. Okay, so here we are on python.org. The next thing we want to do is go here to the Python package index. Then up in the search box, we want to type Faker. Go ahead and hit enter or search. And the top option here is the package or module that we want. Let's go ahead and click it. And then we are directed to a general information page here that has some basic information on how to install. So you could do the pip install. And then scroll down to see general information on how to get started using the Faker package. Okay, so now let's go ahead and click on the extended docs here. And let's click on the providers. And this gives you a general list of some of the more broad categories of data that you can create using the Faker package or module. So you can create address data, barcode data, company data, credit card data, date and time data, job data, person data, phone numbers, and so on. So let's go ahead and just click on one of these to show you. For the address, you can create all kinds of different fake address data here. Okay, so that's how you access the Faker module or package information from the python.org site. Now, if you're using the Spider IDE, which is the integrated development environment that we will be using, and you would like to do a conda install, let's go over how to do that now. So one way to get to the conda install information is to go to GitHub, so let's go there. Okay, so here we are on GitHub, and in the search box, let's go ahead and type conda faker. This top option is what we want right here. So let's go ahead and click on that. And again, we get a general information page here. You can see some install instructions here, or you can click on this Anaconda Cloud. So let's click on that. And here you can see some install instructions if you'd like to install the Faker package via your terminal. Okay, so those are a few different ways that you can install the Faker package. Just a quick recap, you can go to the python.org site and then go to the Python package index tab, or you can go to GitHub and there are install instructions there, or you can go to the Continuum Analytics Anaconda site to get the terminal conda install instructions. Okay, so now let's go back to our Spider IDE. We have a whole bunch of examples to show you, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our import statements so we can access the Faker module. And we will also go ahead and create our initial object or instance that we can use to create our fake data types. Okay, so to import the Faker module, we use this statement here. Then we went ahead and created our instance here, and this fake data variable is what we will use later to access all of our different data types. Now just a quick note, you could also use this code here. So you could use from Faker import factory, create your instance with the factory.create if you'd like. And if you really wanted to, you could probably use a simple import statement and the Faker module to access everything you need as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first few examples. And let's create a fake name, a fake address, and a fake email. Okay, so what we did is we created a variable. In this first example, we just used the variable name. Then we use our fake data that we created here. Then we use a dot to access the name, and this will create a fake name. And we went ahead and put our print statement on the same line. And we did the same thing for the address and the email. So let's go ahead and select these and print them out to the console and see what we get. Okay, so we get a made-up name here, and then we have a made-up address, and then we have a made-up email. Okay. Now, if you'd like to do something similar to that and you want to cut down on the steps, you can go ahead and create a fake profile. So let's show you an example of that. Okay, so here we created our fake profile. We assigned it to the variable profile. Then we use a loop, and we're going to put this in dictionary form. So we said for key in value in the profile, used a dot to access the items of the dictionary. So this will help us to display this in dictionary form. Then we use a print to display. We have our placeholders here. This key will go in this placeholder, and this value here will go in this placeholder. So let's go ahead and select this and print it out to the console and see what we get. Okay, so over here you can see we get our fake profile, and it's in dictionary form. On the left, we have the information type. So we have name, username, address, gender, birth date, and email. And then obviously after the colon, we have the fake data for each of those data types. Okay, so that's one way you can create a fake profile. In our next example, let's take this fake data that we created here earlier and put them into a print to display them all at once. Let's go ahead and select it and run it. And you can see over here in the console, this is kind of just another way to create a fake profile. We have our name, our address, and our email. Now, one thing to note before we move on, in these examples we've used name, address, and email, but there are many, many more, possibly hundreds more different types of fake data that you can create. So you're not limited to just these three types. And remember, if you want to see the different types of data that you can use, you can refer to the Faker module documentation. Okay, so some of the examples we have shown so far are all good and fine, but what if you want to create a larger set of data? Let's show you an example of that. Okay, so what we did here is we used our fake data names and we put that in a loop with a range of numbers. So this should give us a long list of fake names. And if you'd like to change the number of names you want to generate, you can do that here by changing the number in your range. So let's go ahead and select this and run it. And you can see here we get a longer list of made up names. Now let's change this to say 20. And run it again, and you can see we get an even longer list of made-up names. Okay, so that's just one example of how you can create a large list of fake data. And in this case, we just use name, but you could put whatever you want in there for that data type. For our next example, let's show you how you could do something like this, but with a function. Okay, so here's what we did to create our function. We used the def reserved word to define the function. We give the function the name, create names list. It's going to take one argument, which is how many. So when you run this function, if you want to generate a list of 100 names, you'll be able to put that in as the argument. Here we created an empty list to hold the names. Here we use a loop to loop through a range of numbers, and for the range number, that will be defined when we call the function and put in the argument for how many. And here we go ahead and append the fake names to our names list, and then finally return that list of names. So let's go ahead and run our function, and let's go over here to the console and call the function. So in this example, let's go ahead and put in 50 names. Hit return, and you can see we get our list here. of all of the different made-up names. Okay, so for our next example, let's go over how you can use fake data with classes. Okay, so we created our class. We called it customers. Here we created an init method that will take a name, address, and email. And then here we used a special method that will help us to display the data associated with our objects or instance when we create them. Okay, so when we create an instance of this customer's class, let's just say for whatever reason we want to put in some fake data. Let's show you an example of how to do that now. Okay, so here we created an instance of the customer's class. We called it customer1. And remember up here when we defined our init, we want it to take a name, address, and email. So we went ahead and put in our fake name here, and our fake address, and our fake email. Now when we put our customer1 variable inside of a print, because we defined our special method here, this should go ahead and print out all of the information with the fake data. Let's go ahead and just select all of this and run it. And you can see over here in the console, our print displays the following: the fake or made up name, the made up address, and the made up email. Okay, so again, this class example is all good and fine. However, what if we want to create a whole bunch more data all at one time? Well, we can do that by using a loop. So let's show you an example of that. Okay, so what we did here is we created an empty list to hold our customers. Then we created a for loop to loop through a range of numbers, and that can be however many numbers you want to specify. In this case, we're just going to put in a 10. And then here, we go ahead and append our customers to our customers list. And then we just go ahead and loop through that list to display them. Now, just a quick note, this will put in a new line, okay? Now again, remember here in our class, when we defined our init, we want to put in a name, address, and email. So when we append all of those customers to our customer list, we've gone ahead and put in all of our fake data, which is the made up name, made up address, and made up email. So let's go ahead and select this and run it. And you can see over here in the console, we get all of our made up data with the names, addresses, and emails. And since we put a 10 here in our range, we get 10 sets of data over here in the console. Now if we change that to say 20, select it and run it again, over here in the console, we get all of our new data. Okay, so that's one way you could create a whole bunch of data all at one time. Okay, so for our next example, let's show you how you could use fake data with the SQLite 3 database. Now, one thing to note on the database part, I'm currently working on a SQLite 3 database series, so we probably won't go into too much detail on that part of it, but we just wanted to show you how you could use fake data to populate your database files. So let's go ahead and type out the code and then we'll go over it. Okay, so let's quickly go over our code, and then we're going to run it, and we'll see if we get what we expected, and then we'll take a look at the data that it produces. The first thing you want to do is import the SQLite 3 module. Then we need to create a connection to the database. We use this code here, and we give the database file a name. We've called it databasefaker.db with the extension .db for database. Then we need to create a cursor, and this cursor allows us to traverse the records in the database. Then here we've gone ahead and we've created our table, and it's going to include data for names, addresses, and emails, all with the type of text. Okay? Now here's where we use our fake data. So this code here is going to insert the values into the table, and we use our fake data name, address, and email. This code here basically determines what data we want to select from the table we have created. And then here we're going to display the data that we've put into the table. And then finally we use a commit to save our database changes, and then a close to close the database connection. So if we've set this up correctly, this print statement here should print out the data over here to the console. So before we run this, let's actually put this in a new .py file, save it to the desktop, and then run it from there. Let's create a new file. Let's take this code, put it in here. Let's save it to the desktop. And of course we need to import our Faker module. Okay, so now let's go ahead and try and run this and see what we get. Okay, so you can see over here in the console, we get our fake data, and this is what should be in our database. Now another thing that happened when we ran this code is it created the database file, and that should be on our desktop. So let's take a look at our desktop. And you can see here we have our database file. Now one thing you might want to do is actually see this in database form. And in order to do that, you'll need some type of application. If you'd like details on how to get that application, go ahead and check out my tutorial on SQLite, and we go over all the details on that. But for now, let's go ahead and try and open this and see if the data was placed into the database. Okay, so this is our database application here. And if we go to the Browse Data tab, you can see that the fake data that's here in the console was also placed into our database. Okay, so that's just a quick example of how you could use fake data to populate a database. Okay, so let's move on to our last example. And in this case, what we want to do is write some fake data to a CSV file. Now, one reason you might want to do this is because oftentimes when you're trying to learn a new software, so for example, let's say you wanted to learn how to use Tableau or something like that, usually you can import CSV files into those types of software and play around with all of the different options that you have and visualize data and all kinds of good stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and type out the code that will allow us to create fake data, put it into a CSV file, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so the first thing we did is we imported the CSV module. Then we use with open, and inside the open round brackets, we give the CSV file a name. We use the W to indicate that we want to write to the fake data CSV file. And then this parameter here is a standard new line parameter that you usually want to include in your open round brackets. Then we create a kind of cast or assignment, and we cast that as CSV file. Okay, and then this code here we use the writer function, which will help us write to our fake data CSV file. And then inside the writer function, we put the CSV file, which will allow us to write to the file with all of the parameters that we defined here. Okay. Then here we created a loop, and we used our create names list function here that we created earlier up here. Okay, so that will create a list of 10 made up or fake names. And then finally, this code here helps us write all of that data to our CSV file in rows. Now, one little thing to note, you want to make sure that you put your your iterator, in square brackets. So let's go ahead and run this and show you what we get. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've run our code. And you can see over here in the console that we did run it. However, you don't see anything displayed to the console. And that's because this data has been written to our CSV file, which is now on our desktop. So let's take a look at our desktop. And here is our fake data CSV file. So let's go ahead and open this up. And since I'm on a Mac, this will open up in the numbers spreadsheet application. Okay, so you can see here, the fake data that we created here has now been written to our numbers spreadsheet application. Now let's close this and let's just show you that if you don't put this for loop iterator in the square brackets, what actually happens. So let's delete that. Let's run our code again. And let's open up our CSV file again. And you can see that it doesn't display properly. Okay? So just remember to put that in the square brackets. Let's delete it and run it one more time. Go back to our desktop, open it up, and we have our fake data put into our CSV file. Okay, so that's all we have for this Python tutorial on how to create fake data using the Faker module. We will be doing many more Python tutorials in the near future. Join us for those, and we'll see you next time.